couple of years ago, a man walks into a sandwich shop in Delray Beach, Florida, and orders a meatball sandwich. So the owner starts to fix the meatball sandwich when all of a sudden the customer pulls out a gun and he says, "This is a stick-up. Give me all the cash in the register." Now, I don't know what you would do in a situation like that. Admiral, what would you do in that situation? You would give him the money. I sure would give him the money. What would you do? You give him the money. Well, that's not what happened. By the way, this is a true story. That's not what happened. The owner of the shop puts down the meatball sandwich, looks at the robber, and he says, "Listen, pal, we've had a really bad month." He says, "Business has been terrible. Will you settle for $10 in the meatball sandwich?" Now, I'm not making this up. This was in the paper. He says, "Will you settle for $10 in the meatball sandwich?" So the gunman says, "Are you crazy?" He says, "I got a gun here. I'm not settling for $10 in the meatball sandwich." He says, "I'm not settling for anything less than $20 in the meatball sandwich." So the owner says, "You got a deal." Gives him the 20 bucks, gives him the meatball sandwich. You know what it said in the paper? It said, "And the robber left satisfied." My subject today is the courage to negotiate. So understand that people look at things differently. We all value things differently. To give you an example, I had an Uncle Willie. My Uncle Willie was about 95 years old when he died. When he was about 93, he lived up in upstate New York. He's walking in the woods one day, 93 years old, and he comes on his frog, and the frog looks up at Uncle Willie and says, "Hey, old man, if you give me a kiss, I'll turn into a beautiful princess." Interesting offer, right? So Uncle Willie reaches down, picks up the frog, puts the frog in his pocket, keeps on walking. Well, about a mile down the road, this is a true story, by the way. There goes my credibility. About a mile down the road, the frog sticks its head out of Uncle Willie's pocket and says, "Hey, old man, what about that kiss? I'll turn into a beautiful princess." Uncle Willie says, "You know," he says, "I've been thinking about that, and frankly, at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog." Now, the point of the story, and believe it or not, there is one, the point of the story is that we all look at things differently. What is valuable to you may not be valuable to me, and vice versa. So in trying to understand where someone is coming from, try to look at it from their point of view, not from your point of view. It's not easy to take a risk. I once had a new manager. There were 8 of us who were assigned to a new sales manager. This was when I was in computer sales. We were ushered into this man's office, 8 of us, people with families. We all needed our jobs. The first thing that the new manager said to us was, "I fired 125 people last year, and I'm proud of it." Can you believe this? Not hello, not nice to see you, not good morning, but I fired 125 people last year, and I'm proud of it. The other 7 men in the room were sitting there. They were shaking. I started to laugh. I just started to laugh. I thought it was pretty funny. I fired 125 people, and I'm proud of it. The other 7 guys are looking at me like, "I'm going to get it. I'm about to get it." The boss looks at me, and he says, "Brodow, what are you laughing at?" I said, "What am I laughing at?" I said, "I think that's one of the funniest things I ever heard in my life. We're introduced to you, and the first thing you tell us is that you fired 125 people, and you're proud of it." I said, "That's the most insane, funny thing I ever heard in my entire life." I said, "You must be out of your mind." And the other 7 guys are looking at me, and the boss looks at me, and all of a sudden he starts to laugh. Now, he's laughing. I'm laughing. The other 7 guys don't know what's going on. The boss said to me, "Brodow," he says, "I can see you're the leader in the group." He says, "I'm going to promote you to be in charge of the other 7 guys." I live in a house that one whole side of my house is glass. And I like to look outside, however, I don't like people looking in. And that was a problem because when I moved into my house, I discovered that my neighbor, I live on a hill, my neighbor up the hill, as she walked into her house, she was able to look right down into my living room. So what did I do? I hired a contractor. Contractor came in. But there's a fence between the 2 houses. We extended the fence by about 3 feet, about this much. I mean, it's not a major construction project. It was very simple, but it blocked off my neighbor's view of my living room. It gave me some privacy, in other words. The next day, I walked outside. I see my neighbor in front of my house, in front of her house, rather. She sees me, and she starts screaming, "Ed! Ed, this is terrible! Ed, oh, this is awful!" I didn't know the woman. I had just moved in. She's about 65 years old. I thought she's having a heart attack. So I run over, and I said, "Rosalind, what's the matter?" She points to the fence. She says, "Ed, that fence, it's terrible. It's awful. I don't know what I'm going to do." I said, "What's the matter with the fence?" And this is what she said. She said, "That fence ruins the whole look of my house." And that's what set me off. Now think about this. It's a fence between the two houses. You can't even see it from the street. She's telling me it ruins the whole look of her house. How do you think I felt about that? What do you think I wanted to say to Rosalind? I wanted to say, "Hey, look, I'm entitled to some privacy here. If you don't like it, call a lawyer, get a life." You know, I was really angry. So instead of reacting in a negative, abusive, hostile way to my neighbor, this is what I said. I said, "Rosalind, tell you what. You tell me what you want me to do, and I'll take care of it." Real simple, right? Tell me what you want me to do, I'll take care of it. When I said that to her, I completely took the wind out of her sails. And she looks at me like this, and she says, very eloquently, I might add, she says, "Huh?" So I repeated myself. I said, "Rosalind, just tell me what you want me to do about the fence. I'll take care of it." She didn't say a word. She just kind of looked at me very suspiciously, and she backed away into her house, slammed the door in my face, and that's the last I've ever heard about it. It's been a couple of years now. I haven't heard any more about this. The point of the story, however, is that in order for me to do this for Rosalind, I had to first change my behavior, not her behavior. You see all the stuff written about how to deal with difficult people. I have a very different take on this. I say that the only difficult person you have to deal with is you. You can't control my behavior. You can't control anyone's behavior except your own. You can only control your own response.